Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name's Joe Kuzma, and returning back to his usual, I guess, spot or position here on the post-game show, one Zach Flash Saladonia. Zach, it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing wonderful. You took the words from my mouth. I couldn't be happier, actually. Got our best offensive output from the Steelers. They won. I won some bets. My fantasy teams won. And I was thinking this morning, I don't think I've hit on a trifecta like that this year. If it's usually either the Steelers will lose, my fantasy teams lose, or I lose money on bets. It's one of the three that doesn't come to play. But this weekend, we hit on all three, baby.
Hey, that's good to hear. I'm 2-4 in my fantasy league right now. I lost a game by like 1.5 last week, and it was just driving me crazy. Oh, I didn't play anybody that was like worth a damn either. You know, everybody had like big games, and I'm just like, not me. Like, I sat everybody that had like a big game the week before, including like Justin Fields busting his finger. So I've lost games because of sitting players or not playing certain players. And so just a peek into my fantasy life is I'm looking at the Monday night matchup. I need Alexander Madison to have a big game. And right now I am losing by 0.45 points because we have the decimals and I'm up against Brandon Ayuk. So
and you've got Madison?
I got Madison. Yeah.
Hey, I could talk myself into that. You're not dead yet.
I know. I'm not dead in the water. I was sitting there looking at Jordan Love with the Packers. I was looking at Devontae Smith last night. I'm like, come on, somebody do something after Bijan Robinson gets me a 0.3. I'm like, come on, dude. And I got Gus Edwards, who's done jack all season long, and this goes into like covering some of the AFC North games, right? Like, because the Lions go into Baltimore and just laid down. They weren't the Lions. They were like, my fat house cat that rolls over, and the only way he rolls over is one, he wants to show you his belly so he can claw you, but the Lions didn't even have that in them. So
they look like Mufasa.
I don't know. They look like Garfield. Like, it's just so bad, man. And it's like I have like the worst of luck too. It's like my kicker was on a bye. It's like I could play Graham Gano from the New York Giants with that just stellar offense that they have there. I've got guys that are hurting on the bench too, like that.
Yeah, I'd almost rather have the entire lineup of mine and bench all do bad than when you see your bench do good. That's the worst, because then you think it's your fault. It's your mistake. Now you should have put the other guy in. I actually survived. So I have two leagues, a third if you count my dynasty league, which I don't really count because that's like a continuous thing. But the two normal leagues I'm in, PPR, I actually have Bijan on both teams. And I was able to survive his 0.3 performance somehow. And they're saying all kinds of things, man. They're saying he was hurt, but they dressed him as a decoy. They're saying he got sick during the game. They're saying he had migraines. So I don't know if we'll ever know what happened with Bijan, but they were able to pull out a win, the Falcons, without him. So that speaks to Arthur Smith, I think. They did a good job, even though Desmond Ridder, thank God he's not our quarterback, 3 red zone turnovers, man. It was almost like he was doing it on purpose at a certain point.
I saw a little bit of that because then I was watching primarily the Browns and the Colts, and had both games on early. It was like all the AFC North games were on, so I didn't have to deal with Taylor Swift and the Swifties later because obviously I didn't flip over to that game until like the last 3 minutes or so that were left after the Steelers. And,
yeah, I'm a red zone guy. I was just doing red zone all day.
Oh yeah, I had red zone going, of course, too. Browns just two awful like calls, like, but they handed both of them to them at the end, and I'm just like, man, I'm just glad I'm not a Colts fan, because that's got to be like just. When I was talking, with Ryan from the Believe in LA Football podcast, but he's on the Believe Network. Anyways, he was on the pregame, right? And just talking about, like, he brought up like Sean McVay and coaching decisions. I'm like, everybody's talking about firing Tomlin, firing Canada, and here you go, you got like the Rams. They've just had a more recent Super Bowl. They've had 2 years ago, and yeah, fire McVay. And we'll be talking about coaching decisions and that later, because there were a couple there where you're like, when you're in the heat of the moment, this is what happens in these games. But geez, being a Colts fan has got to be brutal. You lose Anthony Richardson. You got this like first round pick that you spend on a quarterback, and he looks like a tremendous alpha male type athlete. And they were actually playing pretty well. One of their defensive tackles ends up getting hurt on that team. You're going to get Jonathan Taylor back, but who cares? Zach Moss has been good. They bust out like these alternate uniforms to play against Cleveland, and they're ready to roll. And just, Gardner Minshew had them rolling at first. They were up like 14-7, and that game was just a back and forth. And then Cleveland pulls Deshaun Watson, and that was just, if you got a chance, check out some of those highlights. I won't belabor any of this with the AFC North. All the AFC North teams win, good and bad for the Steelers. None of those were like any just overall record type games. So the Ravens are in first place by virtue of having the 5 games, the 5-2 record, and then the Steelers are second, 4-2, and the Browns
and
third.
That's bullshit.
Yeah.
That's bullshit, because we beat them. I know we have one less
coming.
win because we had a bye week, but we should be in first place. We beat them head to head.
It's coming. They still got the tiebreaker there. I'm trying to think, actually, when are the Ravens on a bye? They got to be on a bye soon, because they've had a hell of a schedule so far. Nobody on a bye next week. Oh, they got to go to Arizona now. Wow. They must play like every game. I don't mean to not get on the Steelers-Rams game here, but just out of my curiosity, they were just on the road again in Cleveland. All right, let's see. No, I do not want to subscribe to Baltimore Ravens, whatever it is. So let's see. Then they already had 3 division games. So they played at Cincinnati. They had the Colts. They lost at home to the Colts, which was a shocker. They go to Cleveland. They go to Pittsburgh. And then they go to Tennessee. Well, Tennessee's a road game. Doesn't take a home game away from them, but that was actually played at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium over in the UK. And then they come back to host a game against the Lions. And now they got another road game. They go for a West Coast trip. This team's got to be jet lagged at some point, you would think. That is just brutal. And then now as their schedule starts to come around, they're going to have Seahawks at home. Let's see, they still don't have a bye. Seahawks at home, Browns at home, Bengals at home. Then they go to the Chargers, West Coast trip, and then a bye, and then get some home games. So that's pretty wild. It's going to be kind of tough. We'll see how they end up hanging there. They're doing better than I thought they were going to do this season. So, and then the Steelers, of course, unexpected. Well, maybe expected. First half offense was nothing to write home about. We'll go through some of the plays here and whatnot. We saw some of the quote changes that Mike Tomlin ends up implementing. Nothing like, monumental. Probably the worst was letting Dan Moore out there. And Dan Moore had his moments. I will say that much. I'm not going to just pile on the guy. I think he had a solid game.
I didn't notice him.
Yeah.
And as a tackle, that's what you want, because really the biggest mental mistake from the offensive line, I felt like, was early in the game when you had that play where Chukwuezekorfor and Connor Hayward miscommunicated, and they just let the edge rusher free and sack Kenny. That was probably like the biggest mistake I felt the offensive line made all day, and Dan Moore wasn't a part of it. So yeah, credit to him for not being in the headlines today.
Yeah, and Dan Moore, let's see, all of the offensive line, 100% participation in the game. George Pickens, 90% of the snaps, and Connor Hayward, 86%. Can you believe that? Like, Connor Hayward's up there in the snap count category. Is that one of the changes? Maybe that's necessitated by, he's playing like basically as the starting tight end. He's what, 6 foot tall? Guys, he's like a hobbit in a way, a little wrecking ball.
Yeah, I don't know their hesitancy to use Washington more. He's playing too, and maybe it's the comfortability level with Kenny Pickett. I know they have chemistry, and Connor Hayward probably knows the playbook maybe a little bit better than Washington, but it's definitely unconventional to see him out there as a starting tight end. And I don't think he really did, outside of that miscommunication with Chukwuezekorfor, I don't think he really did anything bad, but he didn't really stick out either.
No. Connor's been fine. I think Connor's been a pleasant surprise, I think, especially for his draft position. As much as he's been playing, he seems like more of a utility guy. The interesting one, of course, we thought might fall off a cliff too, is we're talking about participation in the games. You have about an even snap count with Najee Harris, 34 plays to Jalen Warren's 27. But Rodney Williams gets in there for 11. Calvin Austin drops to 7, which is only 3 more snaps than Minkah Fitzpatrick plays on offense because of the victory formations. That's kind of like the interesting stat for today as we start to dig into some of this. The Steelers, what do we say, man? Punt, 3 plays, 3 yards, punt, first play, first series of the game. They get the ball. They did have 6 plays for 32 yards and a punt, 8 plays for 37 with the field goal that they got after LA missed their own field goal. Brett Maher, thank you very much for not keeping the game close. 2 missed field goals and an extra point would have evened this out and made things more interesting at the end. Would have changed all of the play calling and everything on both sides of for both teams. So thank you, Brett Maher. You are a godsend.
Thank you, Boswell.
Yeah, and thank you, Boswell, nailing a 53-yarder in the same direction. I'm like, no worries. Chris has got this. You know what I mean? So
it's every game now. It's every game. I'm reminded just how good we have it with Boswell. He's probably the MVP of the offense for the season thus far. George Pickens may be a close second, Jalen Warren up there, but Boswell is so consistent. We have it so good with him. And it's always fun thinking back that we got him because of the debacle that was Josh Scobie. That all happened in the same year. They trade for Josh Scobie. He cost us 2 or 3 games. They cut him, and then they bring in this kid from Rice, Chris Boswell, and he's been money ever since.
Yeah, Houston Texans swung and missed on him. Well, that happens. You got the incumbent guy. Look at just what happens with Presley Harvin right now.
He was on the Texans and the Giants, I believe. Actually, both of those teams before we got him, and Presley Harvin too. Presley Harvin. I was very happy to see coming back from his injury that he picked up pretty much right where he left off. He was dropping balls inside the 10, and he's kind of already crossed over to a point where he's punting so well. I don't know if you've noticed this, but it's almost like Boswell where it's being celebrated less because we're already expecting it now. So that's great. That's what you want to see because Lord knows the Steelers have struggled with the punter position for a long time, and it seems like they may have finally found some consistency there with Presley Harvin.
Yeah, did you catch on this photo? Carnell Lake's boy is actually in there wearing 37 also. We were just talking about that off air, but he's got the old man's number on. That's got to be cool.
Really cool. That's why Humphrey on the Ravens wears 44 too, because his dad wore 44 for the Dolphins. And Humphrey was originally number 29. When they signed Earl Thomas, he wanted to give it to Earl Thomas because he was the veteran that they signed to come in, and he switched to 44.
Yeah. 44 is a solid number. I like those consecutive digits. My daughter was doing some basketball evaluations, almost kind of like tryouts over the weekend. And, they try on jerseys too to see what fits. Cause with kids, you never know, and this was still swimming on her, but I'm like, whatever it is, what it is, you're growing. She's already 5'3" and only a 10-year-old. My girl's gonna be a tiny. She's a tiny giant already. She's gonna be like an Amazon or something.
Caitlin Clark coming through.
So, gotta insure her legs maybe in the future. You never know. It might be like an Angie Everhart or something, like one of those Sports Illustrated swimsuit models or something. I don't know. I don't have that high of expectations, but you never know. I'd be a proud papa, but. I'm like, what number is she gonna get? Because she's playing rec soccer, they just have a bunch of standard issues 1 through 12, and it's here you go. Well, numbers 9, 10, 11, and 12 are all extra large jerseys or something. You know what I mean? So you're just gonna have this. So I'm kind of interested in that. You don't get
what you get
jersey swag. We don't know yet. It hasn't been placed with the team, but
gotcha.
Yeah, to be continued. In basketball, man, I always had I had 32, 45, 34. I liked consecutives. So even if it was reverse. So you weren't touching 23 back in my day, but when Jordan did return out of retirement, I was already wearing 45 when he was. So that's kind of a cool one, even if I hated his guts because I was a Cavs fan and poor Craig Elo. That's all I could say. So
yeah, I don't know if it's the same for girls, but I know growing up, it's a big deal for boys. I still remember my first ever number. It was T-ball. And my dad was driving me to picture day or whatever. And I remember in the car telling him that I wanted to get number 10. I don't even have a reason why. I think I just liked it as a solid number. And we pull up to the fences and they have all the shirts on the ground. And I beelined for the number 10 jersey and got it. And that set the pace for the rest of my life with how I viewed jersey numbers.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I can remember wearing my first one in first grade soccer for the grade school I went to was 17. And I won't forget that. And then I tried to wear it all the time, but like you'd play in park leagues and stuff. Like I had 17 all the time for the school, all the way through like 8th grade or however long we got to play soccer
Oh
for.
yeah,
So
sometimes it's out of your control because like they don't have it available or the kid above you has it. I remember actually I went back to number 10 for freshman football, and I would have kept number 10 the whole time I played, but the kid in the grade directly above me was a quarterback and he was wearing number 10. So I couldn't wear it after freshman year. But I always liked number 10, Santonio Holmes.
oh, Santonio, that's a classic. So all right. You know, and in doing this, I'm like looking at this, I was like 37 Carnell Lake. Like I forgot that, you know, he was injured for a year. He actually ended up with the Ravens. That's how he finished out his career. I totally forgot about that. I remember he went to Jacksonville. He only had 2 seasons
Him
outside.
and Rob Woodson both.
Yeah.
Bunch of traders.
Yeah, I think I do believe Woodson was on that same roster, actually. So let me see here. Rex Ryan was a defensive line. Man, it's just kind of sick. They had Marvin Lewis back then. This was the 2001 Ravens. They lost the divisional round to the Steelers. But yeah, like Brian Billick, offensive coordinator, Matt Cavanaugh, some throwback names, Marvin Lewis, defensive coordinator, Jack Del Rio, linebackers, Mike Nolan with the wide receivers, Rex Ryan, defensive line, Mike Smith was a assistant and also with the defensive line. That's a pretty stacked. Nobody talks about Brian Billick's coaching tree.
Yeah, no wonder they were so good back then.
Yeah. Oh man, that's pretty crazy. And of course, Marvin Lewis too. You know, he's got some history, long history at the AFC North with the Ravens, and then also with the Bengals, and then the Steelers. He did basically the world tour. He avoided going to those losers in Cleveland. So, anyways, this game, like this beginning of this game, like I was saying, punt, field goal, punt. Like you're just kind of thinking, oh great, like here we go again. You know what I mean?
Oh man, you know, I was texting my friends and I think I put it on Twitter too. I said I would do terrible, terrible things for some offensive consistency. And I'll say this though, given what we've seen this year in the prior games, this was like the best the offense looked, I felt, because even though you're reading down the list right there, right now, talking about, you know, punt, field goal, punt, there were plays sprinkled in between there where the offense seemed to be doing something for a second, and then whether it was a sack or a run call on 2nd and long or a penalty that wiped it away. So I felt like this game was less about, you know, it was less about maybe Kenny not making the right throws and less about the plays that were being called being the issue, when it was just the Steelers were getting in their own way all over the place. I mean, the George Pickens penalties, we'll get to those in the mental gaps, but I felt like when you were watching the game live time and you're not just going back reading what happened, it looked like there was something there to build upon. And it felt like we were just like play or two away for like the entire first half. And clearly it took until the second half to get things really going. But I felt positively encouraged going into halftime, because if you go back and look at the 49ers game or the Browns game or the Texans game, those were some abysmal offensive performances in the first half. Like you couldn't do a damn thing right. I didn't have that vibe watching this game.
Yeah, and you know what? I agree with you. You took the words basically out of my mouth. There was probably more negativity just because of, you know, the game starts, the Steelers, like I said, 3 and out. Najee did get 8 yards on that first carry, which was pretty big. And then Kenny took that sack, -5, lost 5 yards, and they go to a 3rd and 7, and then he couldn't find George Pickens, and you had about a 35-yard punt from the Steelers 28, and you're like, okay, it only gets to the Rams 37, and, you know, I could already sense that people were starting to talk about, oh, geez, Dan Moore's already started. You know, that was already showing up on Twitter. And what are the things that Mike Tomlin, none of this is really changing. And then we bring Presley Harvin back, and, you know, it was a little bit more of a shorter punt. And, oh, geez, what are the Rams going to do? And they come out and they get a first down. And then on this drive, which is actually kind of interesting, they gave up like Darrell Henderson, who's been on the streets, might as well have been you or I. And kudos to him, must have been staying in shape. You know what? How much did he play in this game? He had 39 snaps. That was 57% of the Rams offense. That's really impressive. That's the most of the running backs. Rolls-Royce, Freeman, had 29, so they had a split. But I'm like, geez, you're letting this guy just like walk. Both of these guys come in like basically off the street, and they look like all world. And of course, the narrative, or one of the things that was coming out in the clickbait world of Steelers aggregate blogging and whatnot, was Kevin Dotson. And lo and behold, Kevin Dotson gets an offensive holding penalty, tagged for 10 yards here, 3rd and 14. Larry Ogunjobi comes in, looks like Bill Goldberg out of old school WCW in the late 90s, and just spears Matt Stafford. And now the Rams are going to be forced to punt from basically the middle of the field.
Larry Ogunjobi played really, really well yesterday. Maybe his best game overall as a Steeler, because he had that sack and he also forced a holding call later in the game, and he was playing fast. He was plugging up the middle. Montravius Adams played pretty well too. It was really encouraging to see the both of them kind of rise to the occasion and help stifle the run game for the Rams, because it was going for a second there. It felt like, man, this is just so Steelers to have like these two running backs that nobody gave any time to, nobody has on their roster, but here they come for a career day against the Steelers. Like I was thinking about like Alex Collins from the Ravens, and there's a bunch of other examples too where it's like, wow, this guy wasn't even on a team 2 weeks ago, and here he is cutting the Steelers up for 5 yards a clip.
There was a dude with a really long name, began with an O, that was, I think it was with an O, that played for the Lions when Mason Rudolph had to start. I was like, who is this guy?
He's on the team. He's on our team right now.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I can't say his name now either.
He's our kick returner, number 48.
Yeah. The Bud Dupree number. That threw me off, too. And I'm like, oh, jeez, man. I'm like, we mentioned Calvin Austin. He was about to become, everybody was so happy, sigh of relief that Gunner got dropped, at the end of the week. And I had my cousin, he's just crazy. I think he said he broke his phone yesterday. I had to mute his ass. I pick up my phone and I'm like, okay, 11 missed messages. And it's just like, screw this team, blah, blah, blah. He's so mad. I'm like, okay, that first drive sucked. You get to the second drive, and I don't know how, but this was almost like classic Steelers now, where how's Najee fumble? He never fumbles. And I'm like, he had to be down. And it was like, just like you could have slid like a couple of those plastic shims that you buy at like Menards and under him. And he would, close calls like that. Puka Nacua with like that toe tap later in the game. That was just sick, insane. The ball, like the plays aren't going your way, but luckily that Isaac Sumalo was there to pick up the pieces. They got a first down.
The fumble Ruski, like in the longest yard.
Yeah, I got a first down off of this, so he was able to advance the ball. It only went up to the 27. They advanced it another few yards up to the 32. Well, 5 yards in total. Then Jaylen Warren comes in, and I could already hear it. Everybody's kind of saying, "Oh, okay, now you don't have to deal with Najee. See, this is what we want. We want Jaylen Warren to be playing, and only Jaylen Warren to be playing." And it's like, well, I'm not necessarily going to throw like Najee, out to pasture just so quick. Kenny ends up finding George Pickens for 17 yards. Then Najee comes back in. He gets a nice little gainer, 6 yards on first down. I'm like, this is looking pretty good. I mean, you've got Aaron Donald out there. This isn't there's no slouches really. And I love. Did you see or hear Najee's post game by any chance? And he was just like, they were talking about, like, were you trash talking with Aaron Donald? Because they were talking about it. I think Kenny Pickett may have even said it. They said, well, we just run everything away from Aaron Donald. That was like the call every time. And I believe on one of the touchdown runs, that's exactly what they did. They just changed it from left to right. Like you're hitting the old, I don't know, is it the triangle on the PlayStation? I've been playing on Xbox. On Madden. To flip the play. Yeah. So, flip the play, run away from Aaron Donald. Well, Najee Harris was saying, well, I wasn't really talking trash to him. He was like, I told him, I was like, I'd love it if you tackle me. You're my favorite player. It mean the world to me. It's like, can I get your autograph after the game? Like he's being like,
hear that.
Killing him with kindness. And Najee's got like the biggest smile on his face. And I'm just like, man, that's just some silly stuff. So
yeah, they gave him the Myles Garrett treatment, because all the football nerds will tell you, even when Myles Garrett doesn't produce much of a stat line, like Aaron Donald didn't produce much of a stat line yesterday, they still affect the game like in a serious way where the offense has to scheme around them and just avoid them. So I thought Aaron Donald had a pretty quiet afternoon, but it's all because, like you just illustrated, the Steelers were purposefully avoiding him in order to have any type of success on offense and have any type of run game. You got to stay away from Aaron Donald in those situations. And I thought the run game played well, like all things considered. Like there were times where you wish Najee wouldn't bump it outside. He seems to still carry that bad habit. But I thought him and Jalen Warren both were running confidently. They were running downhill, and they both had very crucial plays for the Steelers to continue their success on offense.
Yeah. Um, Definitely. And you see, well, this play ended up with one of those 2 steps forward, 1 step back type things in the first half. You had Najee lose 5 yards right after the 6-yard gain, and then Connor Hayward gets tagged for a holding call. So that would have been coming back anyways, but Sean McVay declines, elects to let that down get burned. 3rd and 9. Kenny takes a shot deep for George Pickens. And it was just like, ooh, the timing's just off, but I like it. Like, you're backing everybody off. Like, this, okay, this is some play calling I can get with, because it seems like there's a little bit of a run game going. You're mixing it up real nice. You're taking some shots.
Yeah, and you, as the receiver on that play, you got to give your quarterback more room to work with. I don't know if you were listening to the broadcast or not, but I believe it was Troy Aikman even mentioned that's not a bad ball from Kenny Pickett. He put it where it wanted to be over the outside shoulder, but George Pickens didn't give him any room to work with. As a receiver and as a cornerback, the sideline can be your friend and it can be your enemy. It's more of the friend for the defensive back because, you can push the receiver out of bounds. You use it to your advantage. But as a receiver, the sideline can be your friend too. You can talk nice to the sideline as a receiver and get it on your side, but you gotta. It's a fundamentals thing, and it's something that Pickens is a very young receiver still. He's still got to work on a lot of these smaller things. If he's a foot more inside on that fade route, that's a completed pass, and the Steelers either score on that play or they're sitting pretty 1st and goal.
Yeah, and that was Daryl Moose Johnson, the other Cowboy.
Oh, Daryl Johnson, my bad.
Yeah, Troy and Joe Buck went to Monday Night Football. Yeah.
Yeah, I was mixing up the Cowboy lineage.
Yeah, okay. He was bad. Like, if you couldn't see, there was some phantom calls or some real ticky-tack calls in this game, and the only reason I didn't have more of a problem with Craig Rolstad and his crew is because it evened out. It was like more consistent as, they ended up calling it both ways. I think there was one like later that was like, you could have probably let it go. A lot of crews you'd see let it go, and I think it was Deontay Johnson. You could tell he got hooked or wrapped. But man, the holding calls, it was like Alex Highsmith got tackled at one point. I know TJ gets held. I know there could be holding on every play, but it really did seem like a real pick and choose type thing out there. It was just some of the like pass interference or whatever calls, the calls or no calls. They were out there. It wasn't the best crew, but at least it like seemed to balance out. It was like, what are they going to let these guys get away with versus what aren't they going to let them get away with? Steelers end up Harvin has a nice punt, gets down at the 6. And you're like, all right, good. You know what I mean? Matt Stafford incomplete. Stafford couldn't get any like real rhythm going. And you let Rolls Royce run for 9 yards, 4 yards on a 3rd and 1, 30-yard pass to Puka Nacua. And you're like, oh, here we go. You have the Rams backed all the way up, right? And Royce Freeman gets another 11 yards. They end up with a situation where it's a 3rd and 5, and Sean McVay kind of trots him out there. This is the first questionable one I had, and I think it was because, let me see if I can find them kind of sleeping here, right out at the 50, right on the logo. And if I pick up something that's like 4th and 2, 4th and 1, then we're just going to go for it. You know what I mean? Well, Steelers snuffed this out. Minka with a huge tackle on Royce Freeman. Only a gain of 1 yard, 4th and 4. Brett Maher gets trotted out there for a 53-yard field goal, and he doinks the left upright. So the Steelers get the ball back. You're like, okay, still hanging in this, right? And it just felt like this was going to be just a game that slogs. This is still the first quarter. And Najee gets some things going. You finally get Deontay Johnson involved. 14 yards. Najee runs for 6, runs for 9. Then Kenny gets sacked. And you're like, man, can anybody just hold up the fort here? Can we get Broderick Jones out there maybe? But then Kenny finds Connor Hayward. They pick up some of this. They find Deontay Johnson. And then George Pickens gets tagged for an illegal blindside block. So instead of the Steelers offense having the ball in the red zone at the Rams 8-yard line, this gets backed up to a 3rd and 17 from the 35.
Yeah, they got him with the Hines Ward rule, man. Ironically, it killed me to see that, man, because it wasn't. You could say it was a soft call, like he didn't hit the guy too hard, but it's a penalty by definition. That's the rule that the Steelers set. It's the Hines Ward rule. You can't do stuff like that, man. How long was that pass play? You know, right now that was negated.
It was 19 yards.
19 yards. Okay.
Yeah.
So stuff like that kept happening throughout the course of the game. Yeah, George Pickens do the crackback block, right? You also had George Pickens, as mentioned moments ago, way too close to the sideline for that go route, not giving Pickett a chance to drop the ball in. Then you had George Pickens go alligator arms on the guy he crackback blocked on a good ball from Kenny Pickett over the middle, another missed opportunity. Later in the game, you had Deontay do the taunting penalty that negated another passing play.
That was
so there's stuff all over
soft.
this game where like people are hooting and hollering, they're seeing red, they're all mad, and they're like, Kenny just can't get it done. I'm like, dude, we saw the Niners game, the Browns game, the Texans game. There's very clear situations that we've seen recently where Kenny's not playing well. He's missing receivers. He's taking sacks. That was not the story this game. I felt like Kenny was doing enough throughout the course of the game to keep the Steelers close. And fortunately, in the end, he came through going, 7 for 7 in the fourth quarter for 138 yards. So once the Steelers stop stepping on their own toes, once they stop making dumb mistakes and taking dumb penalties, Kenny was able to steer the ship into the promised land. We looked good in the fourth quarter because the offense as a whole stopped making dumb mistakes. It doesn't always just come back and fall back on the quarterback.
Yeah, I was going to say this might have been Kenny's best game. I mean,
Definitely
I know
it was. That's why I was so when I pulled up Twitter and I saw people, freaking out about his output in the game. I'm like, are we watching the same thing here? I felt like, given what we've seen this year thus far, this was a big step in the right direction because you had fourth quarter Kenny come and save the day, but you still had some semblance of offensive success throughout the early parts of the game too. It's a step-by-step process. He's developing live time. And that's not good enough for some people, but he's not going to wake up and be 2013 Big Ben out of nowhere. He's got to take steps to get to that point. And I think yesterday was his best game of the season.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I like that Raiders game, but that was a struggle too.
Raiders was a close second.
Yeah, I mean, it was just the penalties, self-defeating penalties here. Boswell gets you some points, puts you on the board, 3-0. Kenny Pickett, by the way, finishes this game 17 to 25, 68% completion percentage for 230 yards. Of course, he had a rushing touchdown as well later on. Deontay Johnson, by the way, he gets 5 catches, 79 yards. Pickens leads everyone with 5 catches for $107. So by far,
this is George Pickens' first back-to-back 100-yard performance of his career.
Yeah, and you're going to continue getting these. This is trending in the right direction. Everybody just wants everyone to like grow up and be like an all-pro player, like right out the gate. These mistakes, trust me, they're going to talk about it during the week. You can't do this and that. That's his third 100-yard receiving game this season. Like,
and that those passes are coming from somewhere.
Yeah,
they're not just falling from the sky into his hands.
Well, what I was going to say is, and if I go back far enough and look, who else has had? Did anybody have multiple 100-yard receiving games last year? Because Pickens didn't. He only had one for his rookie year. And if you bring up, let's see, Deontay Johnson, I'm willing to bet Deontay didn't even score a TD. So it's going to be hard for me to even think, but I'll look him up and I'll see. Because I guarantee you Pat Freiermuth didn't. Yeah, Deontay didn't even have a 100-yard receiving game last year. Like, now you're going to have to go back maybe to 2021. Because like, who else would have had a 100-yard receiving game on this roster last season? It would have had to been.
No, you're witnessing improvement live time, and it's reflecting in the other positions around Kenny Pickett. It isn't just about his development, but you're seeing George Pickens ascend, and it takes two to tango. He's not doing that on his own. He's developing a great chemistry with Pickett, and the two of them are helping each other develop.
Yeah, so I'm verifying this. I'm looking at it right now. Not Pat Freiermuth. Chase Claypool. Do we think we have like a winner here? Let's see. Chase Claypool, probably not, because the offense was putrid. Oh, he actually had 7 catches for 96 against Tampa. That would have been with Mitch Trubisky in there.
Yeah.
So you have to go back at least probably to the 2021 Pittsburgh Steelers with Big Ben still in. And just out of curiosity, Deontay had to have had, if not Deontay, then perhaps, let's see, Deontay had over 1,000 yards receiving. So you would think he had to have had a couple 100-yard games. But this is just how sad this whole offensive, I don't want to say onslaught. Yeah, he had 3 100-yard games with Big Ben. Back in the 2021 season, it would have been week 2 against the Raiders and then games against the Chargers. Oh, yeah. Wasn't that like a shootout, 41-37 loss, and then the Ravens? So, and then that's about it. I mean, I'm sure Claypool or somebody else might have been in there, and I'm not going to belabor it too much, but there you go. Star in the making now with George Pickens, and he's only going to get better. We talk about all the things he could end up improving. As this game continues, let's see here. Boswell kicks the field goal. The Rams don't really do anything. You have an intentional grounding on Matt Stafford. You have another offensive holding. It was 2nd and 30, 2nd and 29. You're like, okay, don't give up the fort. We've seen them do enough of this. That, bad football, bad defense or whatever. They're playing pretty well, I think. One of the things that was changed here defensively, Keanu Benton. I'm going to look up Keanu Benton. 28% of the game, but I know he got in there. I'm not sure if he actually started this game.
He's got to play more, man. I mean, I guess
know.
Now I kind of sound like I'm contradicting myself because Larry Ogunjobi and Montravius Adams played very well yesterday, so they didn't really need Keanu Benton. But I had that thought during the game after Nick Herbig got his first sack and Joey Porter Jr. was playing well. I was like, where's the third guy? Where's Benton? I thought of the 3 of them, I thought he was going to play the most, and he played the least.
Yeah, it's very odd. It really is when you look at it. And Porter was one of these changes too. Levi Wallace ends up getting beat at some point. I'm going to end up catching up to it. But Porter,
same shit, different day.
Oh, you ain't lying. So Wallace, he gets pulled a little bit, and you even had James Pierre come in like dime situation. He actually played 2 defensive snaps. That might have been his first action the whole year because I don't.
Oh, dude, definitely, because I saw him flash on the TV screen. Like I saw 42, and I had a thought. I was like, wait, we just receive a punt? Was it like I thought we were on defense?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, Nick Herbig getting that sack, man. I felt good for him, man. His eyes had to be wide open. He was probably drooling, waiting for that ball to get snapped. I mean, it was sick. He was just so quick. They just were not prepared for him. Steelers
get-off was really good. He was shot out of a cannon, it looked like.
Yeah, Steelers, it's a 53-yard punt. They get down to their 19. They didn't do much with this. They end up a 3 and out, and you're like, oh, great. There's still like 10 minutes left in this second quarter, and going through a lot of this is just you had Herbig get his sack right here on the very next drive for the Rams that we were talking about. 2nd and 16, Puka Nacua gets like 5 yards. 3rd and 11, Puka Nacua for 22. That was the one where Joey Porter kind of goes low on him and doesn't get a full tackle. And that was one of the things we were thinking was tackling part of Joey Porter's issue. I don't think physicality is really an issue with his game. He seems to be a very physical player, maybe too much sometimes.
He definitely tried. That's what you want to see. He sticks his face in the fan.
Yeah, he's not.
The fact that he wasn't able to make the tackle was just a physical deficiency.
Yeah, he's not Marcus Peters, so
yeah,
he's just gonna walk the other way.
Or Deion Sanders. They don't pay me to tackle; they pay me to cover. We're paying you to do both, Joey.
Yeah. Oh man, Deion. Don't get me started. But you know what? The Steelers end up holding okay here. Brett Maher. They tied the game, 41-yard field goal. Steelers get the ball. Calvin Austin left in for 1 yard, one of the few plays, as we mentioned. And he was in there, and you see Ahkello Witherspoon sighting, and everybody's like doing the Leonardo DiCaprio on his couch, like pointing, like, I know that guy. Oh, he plays for another team now. Now we want him back. He was a bum when he was with the Steelers. Cut that bum, but now you want him back. The same thing with Dotson, right? But Witherspoon gets mossed a couple times as this game goes on by George Pickens especially. So the Steelers, they end up, let me see, a little bit of a drive, but not much. Kenny has an intentional grounding. He had pressure that was put on him. Presley Harvin booms one, though, 55 yards down at the Rams 12. And this was a drive where the Rams take the ball, 8 plays, 88 yards. They get the ball with about 3:46 to go and only leave about 25 seconds left before halftime. And of course, the Steelers are going to take a knee and go in the half, kind of licking their wounds. This was Matt Stafford finding Tutu Atwell for 31 yards. And
I was so mad.
Levi
I was so
Wallace.
mad, dude. They ruined halftime for me. I was ready to go into halftime, vibes high, and then they let something like that happen. It's such a defeating feeling because, you feel like you have a good chance, actually, when it's 3-3 and you're ready to hit halftime. You tell yourself, okay, maybe they'll get 3 points here, 6-3 is doable. But to hit a basic Hail Mary for a touchdown going in with almost no time left is so mentally defeating. It actually speaks to where this team's head is at and the coaching and the leadership in the locker room, because that can take the wind completely out of your sails, especially when you remember the Rams got the ball coming out of halftime. So not only do they score a late touchdown, they get the ball right back coming out of half.
Oh, dude, that had me so worried. Brett Maher, though, misses the point after attempt. So you've got a goofy 9-3. I don't even want to say baseball score, but it's single digits. And you're like, wow, this is going to be a grind if the Steelers are going to win this game. So
that helped me feel better when he missed the kick. I was like, okay, well, maybe we'll win 10-9, 13-9.
Yeah. Well, I should have texted you this during the game. I was texting a lot with Brian. Brian had a lot of things to say. He wanted to be on today. I don't know if he's going to be on this week. He's got a very busy week. So one of these days, all three of us are going to have to get on the same calendar here. The only thing I could say, and I probably tweeted it, I might have copy pasted it right out of it. I said, TJ Watt isn't human. And this very first play attempt, this was a pass attempt for Cooper Kupp. TJ Watt slides back, he's into coverage, and then he reads the quarterback, and you have an edge rusher picking off a ball like he's an inside linebacker.
Looking like his tight end days at Wisconsin.
Like, what?
Soft hands.
What is this? Now, you know what pissed me off? I wanted him in the end zone. I got that Steelers.
I thought he was going to score. He looked like he was going to score.
Not only for my fantasy team, I do have the Steelers D, which a lot of people slept on. And, you get all these turnovers that they create and all the splash that they create. They've been scoring me a lot of points, even in this game. But I'm like, this offense isn't going to be able to score. It's going to be another field goal. It's going to be like 9-6. That was my worry. I'm like, get in the freaking end zone. My fantasy team, my reality team. So, but Kenny gets behind Dan Moore Jr., and we're just like, is this really happening? Dan Moore kind of cleared the path. I know he got behind Suamalo too, but Dan Moore ended up with pretty much nothing in front of him. And they let Dan Moore spike the football too. If you didn't see that. So part of the touchdown. Yeah, part of the touchdown celebration. So it was like, get behind these guys. And
that's good leadership from Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett probably hears all and sees all, and he knows that Dan Moore is not having the best time considered the season that he's had, and then the first round rookie Broderick Jones playing good last week. He probably did that very on purpose, handing him the ball to let him spike it, which I have my feelings towards Dan Moore, but you can't deny that they're playing for each other on offense, and they care about each other. So that's good for continuity and good for just overall team vibes.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was very telling. Maybe it'll shut some people up. Maybe they're happy Gunner's gone. Maybe that'll appease them for they got to win on the road and Gunner's gone.
Everybody's happy Gunner's gone, brother.
Hey, by the way, was it this play or it might have been the next Steelers touchdown? They showed Matt Canada all the time, and it's like a quick blip. It's like 1 second, 2 second. And this time around, they actually show him, and he said something like, he's like, hell yeah, or something like that. Like, he actually had some emotion. I'm like, oh, they caught it this time. Like,
he gave him a let's go, I think.
Yeah, let's go. And like a little fist pump or whatever. Because then the next 2 times he's like, he might have done, like, you're going to do this, and then you're right back to your job. You're looking at the sheet and trying to calculate. You're trying to put together what you're going to do. For,
a lot of game left.
Yeah.
A lot of game left.
Well, it's second half, too. Like, you're not going by script in the second half. Most of your script's used up already. You've already kind of, anything that you're trying to test, like that long pass on third down to George Pickens, like you're testing the waters to see, can we run this play? Can we flip this play? Can we get a matchup and do this again? Much like how the Steelers beat the Ravens, and they looked for that zero blitz, and they were prepared for it. They not only practiced for it, but they test the waters. You know what I mean? It's kind of like...
And it keeps the defense honest.
Yeah, you got the the electric fence that's there, and you keep tapping at it. Is this thing working? Is this thing working? So when you're in the second half, it's like a lot more things are a little bit on the fly, and I think that's just kind of like maybe they're going to get a little bit better at the game planning. But it seemed like, I know Matt Canada said this isn't a team that can play from behind, and it was totally taken out of context. They're not built to play from behind. I don't think any team's built to play from behind, to be completely honest. You get down two scores.
That's what he meant. He meant it sucks for every team to try to come back from behind is essentially what he was trying to say. But I think everybody in the Steeler fan base and in the not Steeler fan base notices that they're just a better team offensively in the second half. And it could be for a multitude of reasons. Kenny's just a gamer. He plays better when there's more on the line and the pressure's on, the lights are the brightest. And it isn't just him. I think the offense as a whole kind of follows his lead, and they play better. They play more loose with less structure, I guess, because like you said, it's not as scripted in the second half. It's kind of more like you're going with the flow of the game. And as a fan, you would love to see them replicate and capture that magic for the first half, but it's just not how this team is schemed up right now. It's uncanny how you can call it every week. We're going to come out, maybe hit a couple of plays offensively in the first half, but it's going to be slow and it's going to be ugly. And then the second half's going to come and we're going to turn it on.
Yeah, well, turn it on. I'm still not thinking that they're going to actually turn anything on here. And we talk about like officiating and game-changing calls, and that's about to come up here because part of Puka Nakua's 8 catches for 154 yards, a large bulk of that comes on this next drive. You had Cooper Kupp only bottled up. He only caught 2 of 7 targets for 29 yards. So the Steelers effectively took him out of the game, even with Levi Wallace. And Levi Wallace's playtime started to diminish some more. They were playing more Patrick Peterson opposite. They were moving Peterson around everywhere yesterday, which is the way I said that they needed to do it.
Yeah, you got to do that with him at this stage in his career. That's what he's best suited for.
Yeah.
And Cooper Kupp, he also forgot how to catch the ball in the first quarter.
True.
So that helped us out. I think he had 3 drops, like in a row almost.
Yeah. Well, here comes the call. It's 3rd and 3. LA's 32. And TJ Watt gets tagged with an offside call. And you could tell he is yelling and he's all over whoever the side judge is that threw the flag on it, because you blink and you're going to miss. TJ's just that fast off the ball. Now, can he be wrong sometimes? Absolutely. You're a human. We never got in this game. They were lauding, and this is the play right after this where Daryl Moose Johnson's lauding the camera work, because you have that 32-yard catch by Puka Nacua right on the sidelines. It's very close. LA runs right up to the line. Tomlin doesn't. I can't blame Tomlin for challenging this. You have no time to actually think or process, and anybody and their brother would have been like, challenge this. You didn't have time to really think or see or process. There's no way to see a replay, right? And they're probably not showing that replay in the Rams stadium. So,
and there's gray area too with that rule, because as recently as this season, you've seen catches overturned where the guy taps his toe, but if your heel or part of your foot touches the white in the same motion with your foot, it's called out. So it's like almost a judgment call now for the referees when they're like, okay, his toe hits in bounds, but does the side of his foot hit the white? Does it not hit at all? So it was that close where it could have been interpreted in that way where, he clearly tapped his toe, but the second part of the foot can't hit on the white like that. Or at least that's how they've interpreted the rule so far this season. You've seen some catches overturned where you're thinking, well, he just toe tapped. But then they explain that like he toe tapped, but his heel came down out of bounds. So there's a lot of reasons, or there's 2 reasons why I think Tomlin challenged. And one, it was because, he was pressed for time. But 2, that could have played to his favor if they would have seen it that way. They just didn't, because I think really the side of his foot, it was close. But if you looked super, super close, there was like a real thin sliver of green grass in between his foot and the sideline. It was just, I don't think he did that on purpose. I think he was just a miraculous, lucky, good catch.
Yeah, well, that changed the game. Both of these calls here, this ends up leading to Puka Nacua has another 20-yard catch, and this leads to Darrell Henderson eventually getting a touchdown run, and Cooper Kupp ends up getting a 2-point conversion. You got the Rams up 17-10 with about 9 minutes remaining. In the third quarter, Steelers, very quick drive that ends up going all for naught, essentially a 3-and-out, with the exception of a penalty that has them negate a -2 run by Najee Harris. So you've got an 8-yard catch by Deontay Johnson. You go backwards, you have a penalty at 2nd and 12, incomplete pass intended for Connor Hayward, and then you have Kenny scramble just up the middle, 2 yards. I'm like, is he getting happy feet again? I don't know. Harvin with a nice 46-yard punt. Rams have
this was the height of the Kenny Pickett impatience on Twitter, I noticed. Because that pass to Hayward was probably his worst pass of the game. I said earlier it wasn't like the 49ers game or the Texans game, but that pass was the first, like, okay, that was a bad decision, bad mark, bad everything. And that's when people started to lose their minds online. But right when you do that, the next series, he came through.
Yeah, it does come through. Not before a little bit more of nail biting. This goes into the fourth quarter or almost up to the fourth quarter, I should say. The Rams continued their possession. Let's see, 11 plays, 30, but only 38 yards of offense, and it ends in another Brett Maher missed field goal from 51 yards. Gives the Steelers some new life. They end up with the ball on their own 41. Kenny ends up starting to get some guys involved, even if it's not big gainers. 3-yard pass to Najee Harris. Jalen Warren, he lost a yard on the one little flip out into the flat. 3rd and 8, but he finds Deontay Johnson for a huge gainer, 39 yards, and then all of a sudden you're back in business, baby, because Jalen Warren just hits straight up the middle for 5 yards, and then again that was left guard behind Suamalo and left tackle behind Dan Moore for the 13-yard touchdown. They tied the game up 17-all, and you're like, okay, now they're back in business. Like, let's see if they could do something here, because this entire time.
I don't want to miss this or just gloss over this, but that pass to Deontay Johnson, that's what I've been harping on this show, is the route concepts the Steelers run just don't make sense for a young developing quarterback. You got guys running curl routes, hitch routes, comebacks, all these plays where the receiver is stationary. They stop and they come back to the quarterback and they stand there. And guess what? If they're covered, they're covered. Kenny has to throw it out of bounds or he takes a sack. That slant route to Deontay Johnson, imagine that. It worked. He got the ball to Deontay while Deontay was still in motion, and he takes it 39 yards. The Steelers have the talent in the receiver room that if you get the ball in these guys' hands, they can make plays happen. You're seeing it slowly develop in George Pickens' game, and Deontay's always had it. So my message to Matt Canada is, like, remember that, dude. Remember that you have the tools in the toolbox to make this offense better. Like, get creative with the route concepts.
Yeah, hopefully. I know that's been we're preaching to the choir at this point with that. You know what I mean? But it was definitely encouraging to see the big gainer for a change, and on a 3rd and 8, you're just hoping they can get a first down, and instead, 2 plays later, you're in the end zone and you got a tie game, and it's like, wow, there's a lot of time left in this game. What can the Steelers defense do? Well, they lean on Nick Herbig, they lean on Landon Roberts, and it's the first 3-and-out. But guess what? This punter named Evans, is it Evan Evans? There's an echo in here. 68-yard punt, but it was a touchback. I was like, holy cow, man. I'm like, why don't I ever have a guy that could do something like that plays for the Steelers? So helps to play in a dome too. But here you go. You got George Pickens. Kenny finds him for 18 yards. Very first play out of shotgun. And then George is getting tagged with a taunting penalty. And okay, Pickens penalty, probably more of a penalty than later on with Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson is just, like, can you do anything? Just don't do anything. You know what I mean? Don't make any motions. I guess don't have any reaction. This is like the inverse of when they used to complain about everyone with the touchdown celebrations. You can't, like, have any emotion for making a big play whatsoever. Don't celebrate anywhere near the quarterback. You just had a big game-changing sack, but guess what? We're going to hit you with the penalty, and it's going to be an automatic first down or whatever if you celebrate a sack in a certain way. It's just ridiculous and takes away from the game.
You got to be smart.
Yeah.
You got to be smart, man. You're hurting your team and you're hurting your quarterback, because this ties back to what I was trying to explain earlier. There's like 4 or 5 plays you can point to in this game where the quarterback made the right throw, connected on the right throw, but you got penalties, taunting calls, unsportsmanlike, like it just alligator arms. There was a plethora of plays in this game that should have gone the other way for the Steelers. Should have been a positive play, but they step on their own feet. They get in their own way. And at the end of the day, that is so frustrating because as a fan, you can see it work. Like it's happening live time before our eyes, like good offensive play. But like the Steelers are so bad on offense that you can't afford any mistakes like that.
Oh,
man.
I know.
You hurt the team and you hurt your quarterback.
I know, and that was the whole game, it felt like, and
Exactly.
at least there wasn't any major turnovers. There was almost the one where Kenny was looking for I think Connor Hayward, and it got tipped like 3 times before it would just, I'm like, oh, thank God it fell to the ground. You know
that was like 2 drives before. That was like his worst throw of the game by far. That play, you won't catch me defending that. That was a bad throw,
forced.
Bad decision. Got lucky it wasn't picked. But that was an outlier of the game Kenny Pickett played yesterday.
Yeah, but for the most part here, this is where he starts warming up. This was almost indefensible. Like he could not guard Deontay Johnson. You could not guard George Pickens on these plays. Kenny is throwing them open. This is the major difference. He wasn't seeing the field this same way, especially week 1 against the 49ers. I'll even say against the Cleveland Browns, he was struggling. I think playing against some of these better defense, different concepts and schemes, even with the Ravens up until like near the end of that game, I think the pieces are starting to come together. After the taunting, you got Najee running the ball. You got Jaylen Warren running the ball. You got Kenny on 3rd and 1 sneaking it. You're like, all right. Good. Keep this going. You got a chance. This is a tie ball game. Let's get something here, even if it's a Boswell field goal, 21-yard pass to George Pickens. Najee picks up 10. Then he picks up 5. Then they find Deontay on another pass for 11 yards. Rams get tagged, too many players on the field. Kenny finds Connor Hayward for 11 yards on a 1st and 5. Najee ends up right up the middle for 3 yards. Najee was not going to be denied. Najee was running like a man possessed yesterday, like a man that like had been criticized that you could lose your job to Jaylen Warren. You're a former 1st-round pick. You want to see these other guys that are talking about making money at the running back position? Like, put up or shut up. And he was certainly putting up. He almost scared me, though. I thought he was going to fumble the one, like where he just went to reach for it. And
yeah.
Because you were talking about that Falcons game, and I had seen that happen with Red Zone. It might have been Drake London, actually, maybe not Desmond Ridder. And I'm like, oh, dear. It just gives me that Xavier Grimble vibes against Denver in that playoff game years ago. So
they say Bill Belichick, like, it doesn't allow you to do that. Like, I remember hearing that about Belichick in the Patriots. I don't know if they still do this because they won on Sunday, but they're not the same Patriots anymore. But he what's what I'm looking for? He does not allow players to do that. Like if you are a Patriot and you got caught extending the ball over the goal line, you'd be cut the next day or fined because he just knows the risk is not worth the reward. You get a touchback or worse.
Yeah. Najee puts the Steelers up after the Chris Boswell extra point conversion, 24-17. You got about 7 minutes and 20 seconds left in this game. Let's see what the Rams are going to do. Patrick Peterson on an illegal contact that, this is where I was starting to get a little sketch on some of the calls. And now you're letting Royce Freeman run free a little bit, but Stafford, he's feeling heat everywhere. Keanu Benton puts on some amazing pressure. He misses Puka Nacua. They end up having to punt once more. The Steelers get the ball back. Najee Harris, a couple of runs. Kenny Pickett finds George Pickens again for 31 yards. This one was by Kobe Durant. The previous play for 21 was a Killer Witherspoon, by the way, in the coverage. Was
that up the middle?
I just lost it. Yeah. Yes.
It's beautiful pass.
Yes.
Beautiful pass. Great execution.
Wait, say that again, louder for those in the back. It was in the middle.
Beautiful pass up the middle. Use the middle of the field. Get your receivers in motion down the field. Play action. It's like when they remember to do these things, it works, and yet they're resistant to go back to them. But I guess given the state of how this offense has been this year, we should be appreciative that they at least do it sometimes.
Appreciative to get anything, man. It's like, can I please have some more ports, sir? Like
almost all of the best pass plays are over the middle. Like a lot of the best throws where you got people saying, oh, that's a big time throw from Kenny Pickett, they've been over the middle. Like if he's good at it and it's an NFL throw, keep doing it. These sideline throws, they can work because George Pickens is such a talent, and you saw Deontay Johnson make some outside catches too, but there's no reason why they should ignore the middle of the field as much as they do, especially when you see it work as often as it does whenever they pull it out.
Yeah, and this was Aaron Donald breathing down Kenny's neck too. Like, and he stood tall in there, didn't have his happy feet, and it was a thing of beauty. This is where you get the Rams to start burning some timeouts, and they burn them, and you got a 3rd and 8, and Kenny Pickett is looking for Deontay Johnson, and they have a pass interference call that would have been a first down. And this is like you're getting into the ball game territory because you're about to hit the 2-minute warning, and it's going to be the only other time that the Rams could stop the clock. Sean McVay is trying to get ahead of that and maybe still have that and get the ball back and have the 2-minute warning to stop the clock once for an opportunity to come back. They're down 7. They need to score. However, this was Deontay Johnson, quiet, putting the finger up to his lips. I'm like, come on, man. Is that really a flag after a big play like that? Somebody got handsy. That was way worse of a call or more of a pass interference than whatever illegal contact or cop out that was just earlier with Patrick Peterson. But anyways,
it's a soft call, but it's the penalty.
Yeah.
It's like the George Pickens crackback block. He didn't hurt that guy.
Yeah,
but that's just, you got to know the rules, man.
Yeah, by definition, maybe a little too black and white on, that's an intensity that's like that's part of the game. Like, that's not part of the game. That the one with Pickens in the crackback block, you can't go back toward your own goal line, and toward your own end zone and throw that block. That's specific because guys don't have a head on a swivel. It's a safety issue. This is like little kids stuff. You know what I mean? I guarantee these guys are swearing at each other all game long, but as long as they verbalize it and don't actually put up a middle finger or something or throw a punch, like, come on, man. He's like telling them
they're judgment calls. They're judgment calls. I'll give you that. The referee, it is a judgment call because I watch games every Sunday and I think, that's going to be a taunting, and it isn't. It's like whatever the ref is deciding that day. You'll see guys scream in another player's face. You'll see receivers get up and do the look down at the cornerback, and you're like, that's going to be a flag.
And that was kind of the Pickens one, right? Because Pickens was like over top of him. How many times did A.J. Brown do that in a Sunday night game against the Dolphins?
Yeah, it's like the refs just pick and choose.
It was every freaking play, and Deontay Johnson, he's basically sealing the game. He does his job, and then you get tagged with a penalty. I'm not a fan of that one, and that could have cost the Steelers. And it's like, how do you this isn't like something where somebody's dancing around like Antonio Brown doing a flip or whatever Antonio Brown used to do. I thought that was pretty ticky tack there.
And Deontay was interviewed after the game, and he mentioned that it really wasn't his intention to taunt because he made it seem like, and I've yet to hear Witherspoon's rebuttal to this, but Deontay made it seem as if like he did that to Ahkello Witherspoon because they were former teammates and friends, for lack of a better term. He's just messing with his boy.
The referees have to know that. The referees should know that. They should know who played with who, and even guys that went to college together. And I even when I officiated, and I knew some of these, you'd have transfers between different colleges. You'd have people that played on club teams together or high school. They came out of like wherever, the same area, the same town. They knew each other. They played alongside each other, or they were competitors with each other for so long. But on a friendly, there was friendly terms there. You knew when it was malicious versus when it wasn't, and that you kind of proved my point there. I don't think anything malicious was done there. But anyways, Allen Robinson just shy of moving these sticks. And this is where I wanted to go back to. I said the Puka Nacua thing, and now I'm going to go to this one too. Daryl Moose Johnson talking about how great the camera work was with the Fox broadcast team. And when we saw Puka Nacua, okay, that was a kind of decent shot. You could see some green, but there was one freaking angle. $1 billion industry of the NFL. How much did they sell the Washington Commanders for? $8 billion or something crazy. We can't get cameras. We can't get fixed. I will die on this hill, dude. And it's like they don't want to get the calls right sometimes.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
So this is north of the 2-minute warning. Kenny Pickett, left guard, 4-yard, looks like he's stopped short. Will we ever know? No, because when you got this diagonal line, you're looking at it here hey, he didn't reach that line. How do you know? Unless you're standing right on the line. You got to be standing, the human eye is great if you're at a 90 degrees, like a corner, right? And you're looking straight across and you find a spot across the street or something. You could line up with that damn near perfect, and you would know if you have, where's the pylon camera? We had no pylon camera footage. You know what I mean?
And everybody holds the ball differently. You know, you got guys that'll
Yes.
cross like this. Some guys have it in their gut. Some guys will extend it. Like it looked like Kenny had it, you know, right about here.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on where his knee was when he fell, it's very possible that the tip of the ball did cross the line to gain. It didn't look great for the Steelers, but everybody gets calls. Everybody has calls against them they don't agree with. Everybody gets help from the refs from time to time. And the fact that the Rams blew their timeouts and couldn't challenge and couldn't have it reviewed, that comes back to their own problem, their mistake.
Yeah.
You know, nobody knows poor clock management and poor timeout use more than us Steeler fans. You know, I love Tomlin, but that's been a clear deficiency in his profession for the duration of the time he's been here. But so that's on McVay, man. That you should have had a timeout in a game like this where it was virtually tied like the entire game. There was a lead change every so often, but the game was close the whole time. And when you're in a close game like that, you got to figure timeouts are going to come into play at the end of the game. You got to have one left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He didn't do himself any favors. He was trying to get it back for the 4th down. The spot with Allen Robinson, I was commending that. I was texting Brian and I was like, holy cow. Like to do that in real time and spot it where they did short was incredible. What an incredible call. So I will give the referees props on that one. You could obviously be right. We have no way of knowing. And then, did you actually know if they got the 1st down? They measured it. They had like this overview, like with the camera, and they stretched the sticks. I couldn't see where the nose of the ball was. I'm like, why is it such a mystery? Like,
yeah, I didn't know until they had the stick firmly planted in the ground next to the football that I could see that it was like that much past.
Yeah, I didn't have the TV like right in front of my face. I'm like looking at a distance, and I'm like, oh, and then they just snap away from it. I'm like, yeah, great camera work, guys. Like, get us something that's down the line. Where's the pylon cam at? Show us the pylon cam that you're supposed to have there. That's why they put it there.
Yeah, what happened to that?
Yeah, and you have one on both sides of the field. You see the guys like the chain gang, and they picked it up and they move it and they set it up for the next set of downs and everything. And we're still using the sticks, and we don't have a ball that's chipped or anything. Like the World Cup with soccer, again, I know people aren't necessarily always the big soccer fans. Football people usually aren't. So, which is okay. But they have this goal line technology. With soccer, the whole of the ball has to be all the way between like the crossbar and in between the bars and over the line. Not touching. No piece of the ball can be touching the line or it's no goal. And FIFA's figured this out, but the NFL refuses to use similar technology. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I don't know what, I don't know if there's any like integrity to the, I got to figure out that if FIFA figured it out with the soccer ball, that it doesn't hurt the integrity of playing the game and kicking the ball around versus throwing or kicking a ball around the NFL. You could even use it too when you got like these kicks sometimes, like an extra point or a field goal, and it goes sailing over one of the upright. And one guy looks at the other guy, and the guy's like, "Why are you looking at me?" It's like over you. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Is it good? Okay, I guess it's all right. You know, so that drives me nuts. But the kneel downs, victory formation, good victory by the Steelers. I would have liked a little less controversy there at the end. I'm just saying with the camera angles, somebody's gonna be like, "Oh, you're a homer. You know for sure he wasn't." No, there's no way of knowing. Go out there and stand on a field sometime and stand 5 yards away from the line of scrimmage or the line of gain, and then tell me if you can tell if somebody made it or not decisively, unless you see them physically, especially when it's like a hash mark type situation, you know, not the line on TV that they draw, because that's unofficial. If it's like where there's a hash and they're in like in the green somewhere, there's no, now if you got to go over like a goal line or over like, you know, one of the other down markers where you got to strip the line painted straight across the field and they got to go over that boundary, that's a lot easier to be able to tell if the ball passes or not. And then in these situations, it's usually not. And especially when you know there's going to be like 22 dudes piled up on one another right there too, that's obstructing your view.
Yeah, and I mean it's the end of the game, so it's a big deal. Naturally, it's the one play people will point at and say, "Well, that wasn't fair. That's not fair." But I think it was Peter Schrager on Good Morning Football this morning that said it best, and he's a friend of Sean McVay's. They're buddies, and like he's a Rams supporter, as most media members are, because they're the new LA team. You're supposed to support the Rams like blindly if you're in media. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that, but they all do that. And Peter Schrager said the Steelers earned that win. Like they made more plays than the Rams. The offense was better than the Rams offense in the fourth quarter. Our defense made plays. Like, yeah, you can say a call was on one way, or, you know, the Steelers lucked out on this side, the Rams lucked out over here. But in the grand scheme of the game, the Steelers deserved the win. So you can cry about the fourth down call or not, but they made enough plays to win the game, and that's why they did.
Yep. Well, we're up against it, dude. Pretty long show here, but we had a lot of things to say. We have a lot more to say when there's victories. So it was
Hell
good.
yeah.
It was good to see. Dan Moore played up to snuff. Aaron Donald didn't kill them. They got the run game going a little bit. Just some final numbers. Najee Harris, 14 carries for 53 yards, 3.8 average. Jalen Warren, 6 for 32. That was a 5.3 average. Each of them had a touchdown. Kenny added another rushing touchdown. 3 rushing touchdowns in this game. Who would have thunk it? Doesn't help Kenny, though, when somebody goes back and looks at his numbers and says, oh, well, he's thrown more interceptions than he has touchdowns, because on this end, you got all of it. All the offense was all rushing TDs. So you're going to have that.
I think he's thrown the most touchdowns in the AFC North, though, unless Lamar just tied him. But last week he had the best stats out of the whole AFC North.
Yeah, Lamar had 2 for Mark Andrews alone. That was one of the dudes I actually played that was smart.
Tight end day.
For a change. And he had 1 for Nelson Aguilar, too. Yeah, so Jackson had 3 TDs just. So he had a 155.8 quarterback rating, which
I'm a Lamar guy, so good for me.
I'm never a Lamar guy. He's wearing the wrong color. That the purple and black is disgusting. It's disgusting.
Can't imagine.
Yeah, couldn't do it. Couldn't wear it. Never. Anyways, folks, Steelers improved to 4-2. Who would have thunk it, right? 3-1. 3-1 in the AFC, but this was the NFC game. But still, keeps pace with everyone else. The Bengals were the only team that were on a bye week right here, so we're going to continue forward. Look forward to the game against Jacksonville Jaguars this upcoming Sunday, and maybe you and I get back together and talk a little bit about this later this week. So, folks, Zach, thanks for joining us, of course. Take a time out of your schedule. And, folks, that'll do it for us. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, leave a rating, review. Thank you wherever you are watching or listening from. Follow that man right there at ZE Flash NFL on X, formerly Twitter, if you haven't been on there in a while. Yeah, throw up the X. Throw up the X. That could be bad. And like, you throw up the X this way, then it's usually like, stop the clock. We need somebody to come out and take care of someone. So bring the stretcher. But thankfully not in any Steelers games. Knock on wood. Don't need anything like that. So looking forward, hopefully soon, get Cam Hayward back into this mix. I'm gonna be happy. Need to get him going. And I was very sad that Pat Freiermuth got hurt again, but and we'll also see where we at now. Week 7, trade deadline coming around the corner. With the way the Steelers were making some subtle changes in that secondary, could they add something there? Maybe. We'll find out soon enough. But
possibly,
I don't know. I'm not gonna say anything. I don't think I would have ever been suited to be a corner. That's for sure. I don't want to play defense at all. They get fined. So
it's harder than it looks.
It is very much so. All right, folks, that'll do it for us. My name's Joe. His name's Zach. Till next time, encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.